2025. A world teetering on the brink of geopolitical collapse. As nations flex their military muscles and tensions simmer just beneath the surface, another, more enigmatic presence casts its shadow across Earth's fragile peace. Unidentified Flying Objects. Sightings multiply, with crafts of unknown origin piercing the skies, leaving defense systems confounded and intelligence agencies scrambling. Are these aerial anomalies mere distractions from the dire diplomatic dynamics or harbingers of a different kind of confrontation? One not between countries, but civilizations. Could these mysterious visitors hold the key to our planet's salvation? Or might they be spectators to our own self-destruction? This case file, join the theorists as they navigate the nexus of nuclear nerves and nebulous night-fliers, seeking to uncover the unsettling union of Imminent Imperils, World Wars and Wandering UFOs.
Welcome to Alien Theorists Theorizing Case File 299. Listen, we got Case File 300 coming up, so we thought we'd ease into it, something light, something, fun, funny.
Yeah.
Easy breezy. We're talking about World War III. Or friends turned enemies.
Frenemies.
So someone's O's gotta go. As superpowers face off. It is, I don't think in our lifetime, it's hard to remember because we were such kids back in during 2001 and stuff, but I can't remember more heightened time of ugh.
This is
probably the most this is the most heightened time we've had in 70 years.
Since World War II.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, for Western countries, I mean, there's been a lot of other crazy shit go down.
Well, it's us is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Dan bought me a friendship whistle when he was in Thailand.
Yeah.
It's a
Dan wasn't in Thailand.
Bottle opener.
What are you talking about?
Oh, I mean, last time, long time ago.
Long time ago.
The
last
time,
it's
a few
nice.
years ago.
You just you blow into it, and anytime you blow into it, Dan hears it.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I just love it. Thanks, Dan. So
it's also functional.
It's the perfect gift.
Pretty sure I thought it was a bottle opener. I had no idea it had a whistle functionality on there.
No, it's just a big.
It's got a tip whistle.
I actually thought it was a. I thought it was
get
a
us
pipe
banned
too.
from YouTube just for showing that. Probably
the big old red rocket.
It was a jalapeno.
Purpose penis.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Big old jalapeno.
Flower bud is what I thought it was. Kind of orchid.
It's to bring good luck to the studio. The craziest thing for me is looking back at World War II. Not that I'm a big World War II guy. I've been watching a lot of Dunkirk and 1918. Right?
I'm more of a fan of World War One. I'm more a fan of the original World War.
Yeah, as depicted by 21st century movies. But it's I never really realized that World War II kicked off in 7 days. To me, that was a crazy thing. From the Archduke.
Yeah, but they were
Ferdinand.
That's
that's World War II, isn't it? Ferdinand?
No, World War One is Archduke.
Oh yeah, so the number 2 is number 1 is 7 days.
Yeah,
it got. Yeah, it's insane.
World War II is years of boiling point to a fucking sanctions and Hitler's rise to power and
the
Olympics and all that shit.
Yeah, his rise to power, and then as soon as he started invading other countries, people were whoa, okay, I guess it's Czechoslovakia went down, and then they're okay, that's one, and then another, and then you're okay.
Well, and you're starting to see those dominoes in effect. It started with. Russia, Ukraine. Well, what's that? It's been going on officially a year now.
Mm-hmm. That's
right, and
just over, isn't it?
It's a year and a half. It started in March of 2021,
and now we're seeing obviously the stuff with Israel and Palestine. started to kick off, just tensions at an all-time high.
Oh, but that's not even it though. Like, what about China and Taiwan? What about fucking China and India? Like those guys, that's one nobody talks about right now. But that fucking border is so volatile.
But they haven't crossed the border yet with military.
No, but they're like, tempers are motherfucking flaring.
Why does China, who wants what? What in that one? Does China want India or does India want China?
China wants everything.
It's true.
They
already have everything.
I guess they have, like, Canada and the United States right now are, with their Navy fleet, go out and escort the Philippines fisher boats out to allow them to fish, because if they do not escort them, China will not allow them to fish the waters.
Pretty much.
Right? Like we're just at such a crazy boiling point in history where it's like
history repeating.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's just like this, nothing. It's like everyone's like, it's time to make money. We need another big fucking world war to get us all out of this funk we're in.
Yeah, I mean, because the Russia into Ukraine, that started back in like 2014 they took Crimea. It was annexed just one day. Like, yeah, it's ours. And then it was just like a slow drip of crumbling governments, and then they installed an elected government that was friendly with the West, and that was no bueno. And then now we've spent how much $100 billion of weapons over there. Well, but the one I went through today, because I really knew nothing about the history other than they've been at war forever, is the Israel Palestine. So I listened to podcasts today from both, like, scholar from one from Palestine and one from Israel, and just seeing what the history of that place was. It was bananas.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
3,000 years of just like constant rotation of who occupies the land, whose holy temple is there. It was insane. I couldn't believe it. And then just in the last, I didn't realize that there was barely any Israelis there until like late 1800s. And then like they had a immigration back in because Britain was there. And then it wasn't until like just post World War II where they're like, they gave them the option to say, okay, we're going to divide the land into like 2 states. And Israel pretty much said, okay. And then Palestine said, no chance. And then it was like, and then, so since then it's been constant. And then I didn't realize that after that happened, they had that border dispute between like Palestine and Israel. What I didn't realize is that all the other nations around also invaded Israel, and Israel fought back and kept the land.
It's basically like it's all the
7-Day War or whatever.
The Nakba.
Yeah.
But like it's basically all the Arab countries are banding together against Israel for the most part. And it's like, I mean, not to get into choosing sides or anything like that, but you can see where both sides are coming from to a certain extent, right? Like it's,
dude, from everything I listened to podcasts all day today about just these professors talking about it. They've both committed the worst crimes ever, and they're both in the right to say they both have the right to exist, and they both want to defend themselves, and it's a no-win situation. That's what it feels like.
Well, I mean, the 2-state answer seemed like
the right one. Looking back,
yeah, like that.
That was the less worst solution.
Yeah,
I suppose.
I mean,
yeah, between worse and bad, right?
It's hard because it's like, especially like from like I grew up in a very biased point of view on this, unfortunately, because
pro-Palestinian leaning.
Well, but because like with you look at Lebanon, right? Like Lebanon was a very Western country, a Westernized country for the longest time until Arabs came and kind of split Lebanon up, and the Western, I'd say like the Christians basically got the raw end of the deal, adapt or fuck off type thing, and that's why my family ended up coming to Canada, fleeing to Canada eventually. But it literally with there was unrelenting ideas there, basically, fit in or fuck off. And same with the 2 states. It's like, well, no, that's unacceptable. Whereas, why can't we just adapt and, coexist? But would have the Israelis been okay with that? Would the Zionists been okay with sharing their ancestral Holy Land? Fucking knows.
From what I read or listened to today, back in 47 or whatever it was, they were okay with splitting the state because there was very few of them compared, like they were a much smaller population.
Yeah.
And they were okay.
Well,
Palestine was not, and then just never ended from there.
Well, and then every time that there's conflict, Palestine just loses more and more of their fucking land.
Well,
like they just get pushed further and further back to the point where they're like, a lot of people, when you talk to, like, they describe them as basically like open air prison camps. Like they've got nothing left. They've got no resources of their own. They've got nothing to work. They've got nothing to farm. They've got nothing. And they're stuck because they're both borders. They can't leave.
Well,
Israel won't let them leave, and Egypt won't let them.
And no one will take the refugees.
That for me is the weirdest part. It's like you have all these Arab countries around, but they won't take any refugees.
Well, I guess from the point of like
all under mass conflict.
I guess 90%
possibly, but there's also a thing where
Lebanon was like 50% refugees for a while.
But like, maybe it's one of those things, and I don't know. And I'm not well versed on it enough to 100% know. But maybe it's like where it's like if someone took Zell's house and he was like, they're like, hey, when are you three taking? We're like, fuck no, Zell, let's go take your house back. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's one of those things where it's like that's the line these nations have drawn. They're like, we're not, but it wouldn't make sense why you don't help. Like while they're trying to. It's fucking crazy. It's crazy, dude. It's craziness going on right now.
Are they help? Like a lot of people think that there are other countries are pulling, like basically puppeteering fucking Hamas, right?
Yeah,
and controlling them. And
they're a landlocked nation. Like, where are they getting all this? Where would they be getting these weapons and stuff from? Like, it's
they know it's Iran funded.
Absolutely. Well, and then you look, but Hezbollah as well on the northern border. Mm-hmm. In Lebanon, Hezbollah's been fucking supporting Hamas for a really long time too. And they're like, that could be another fucking jump off point, right? And then if Iran's getting involved, what's stopping Iran's allies from getting involved eventually, right? And that's what's scary. Like, we're talking World War III here, right?
Yeah, I mean,
doesn't Saudi Arabia really hate the Iranians though? Like, it's a lot of like in the Middle East countries. Like a lot of them are like tribal like conflicts that go back like thousands of years.
Everyone knows
enmity is like just
Saudi Arabia is on our side.
It's just, I think WWE. It's fascinating in like a weird way, but it's like how most of these countries, like you have a place like Saudi Arabia, it's like money out the butt and you got so much money, but it's all kind of like a lot of their policies and stuff are dictated, and like their relationships with other Middle East countries are dictated by like tribal relationships, like going back thousands of years and stuff like that. It's just, I mean,
they got a lot of money, but you can't evade people in fucking Lamborghinis, right? Any tanks.
Well, it could be
they got the money though. They got plenty of drones.
Yeah. Lifted Lamborghinis with bulletproof doors and windows.
But I don't know, like they've got plenty of this stuff, and I don't know, they might also have some of our technology from last president.
But if like you got to admit, like China's going to get involved, Russia and China. I know Russia's a little tied up right now, but China's going to come in and support.
I don't think Russia would come in. Russia's already like done their shit in the Middle East. They're like, they had the Afghanistan. They were stuck in there forever. And like, I don't think they ever want to come back.
Well, it's just the interesting thing is
they know their shit.
Honestly, I feel like this is a weird conflict there. Well, not weird in the sense where it's not surprising, but it's like, it's getting to the point where it's like this conflict that really shouldn't be happening is really pulling these other parties that are like, fuck.
You're talking about Russia,
the
Ukraine?
States, right? Like China into this like where you kind of have to back your allies, and you're just like, fuck. Because like, wasn't the United States already intercepting missiles from Yemen, like headed to Israel? Right, so they're just there, like fuck. Like now we're involved.
I don't know. We're in the fog of war right now. It's kind of hard to decide because they said like a hospital blew up. Turns out it didn't blow up. It was a parking lot.
Oh, dude.
Well, but that's a jumping off point for World War III as well. Is the disinformation and the cyber attacks.
Like, fog of war. Right? So, this person did that. It was a Hamas rocket did that. They're like, no, it was an Israeli rocket. And they're like, actually, no, it was a different group.
Dude, 800 different videos of like, look at the rocket come from this way. Look at the rocket came from this way. Look, it came up. It misfired. Literally every single which way. Like, if you on different news sites, you're like, I have no idea. Literally no idea what to believe.
Man,
it's crazy.
It's crazy because the Gaza Strip, especially, most of my day was just listening about this, and they the only thing the only way they actually get anything is through humanitarian aid. They have that's like a 50% unemployment rate. They have nothing.
They're landlocked, dude.
They have
It's
nothing
insane.
that they can do. The only people that support them are the United Nations, and actually Israel itself props up Hamas in a way. Like they give money and stuff because they're the neighbor kind of, but they've been fighting. It's super weird. So Hamas gets all this money, and instead of using it all to help the people, they end up spending a ton of money building these underground cities and bunkers and like fuel reserves and like all this militant stuff. So it's like they were elected in 2007. There's never been another election held. So, and they get all this money, and then they just build up for years and years, this like underground networks and like just a group to try and infiltrate Israel to take it back is the main. It seems like it's the main goal, at least recently. So it's so fucking crazy.
And a lot of all the other Sunni countries are supporting them, so they're getting a bunch of military fucking aid and support from them. They might not be like boots on the ground, but they're getting weapons, fucking tanks, rockets, everything like that.
Because the crazy thing to me is like even that Hamas attack on Israel, like what's the end? Like what's the end game on that one? To me, I'm like
revenge.
Revenge,
like, it was
but then
literally it's
like
a small win for them in their eyes. Honestly.
I mean,
But
didn't you have the statement by one of the Hamas officials who'd be like, "We just deny Israel's right to exist. Like we will keep fighting until they just are no more." And that's it. Like that's their whole thing. Like,
in their own words, they say like from sea to sea or whatever, like to get rid of the Jews, pretty much.
Yeah, they want to.
Ooh.
It's like,
when you have like a despotic leadership like that, it's not really like something you can kind of, there's a diplomatic solution is kind of like in the wind until you have a shift in leadership. Like there's really like, there's not much options that are left open to that.
It's like but the thing is like, of course that's going to be the leadership at this point, because these people are fucking angry and miserable and they live in despair. Right. So they're easy to get riled up. They're easy to want fucking violence and death because their lives are so fucking terrible. Right. Like I'm not justifying it, but I get it. Like, it's like, of course they want death to these people because in their point of view, not saying that it's the truth or not, but they had their land stolen from them. Literally not that fucking long ago.
Like a generation, like your parents.
1948, 1947, 1948.
Well, yeah, it was over like 70 years. They like, Israelis came back
slowly, but then
back to the land, and they had like separated neighborhoods. There was like a Palestinian neighborhood here, and then
I'm talking like the actual Israel, like the establishment of Israel as a country was what 47, 48, something like that.
The reestablishment, like if you go, it was for 2,000 years. Then it was gone for 1,000 years. That's just the craziest part of the world. Like all the major religions are all from this area.
Well, that's what's nuts to me. It's like this is the cradle of civilization. This is where everything started. Right. And it's like, it's just
religious wise,
the constant area of fucking conflict.
Yeah. Forever. 3,000 years or more.
Right. Like that's like our oldest civilizations date back to the Middle East.
It almost goes to show you like what they call epigenetic memory, where like you just have like the memories of like your ancestors. It's like, so no matter what, it's like ingrained in your identity, like upon birth, almost like you don't, even though you don't remember obviously all the battles of ancient, it's just like it's in there.
I think you guys already touched on it. It's like three of the most successful religions in a way. The three successful,
the biggest ones for sure,
and progenitors of a lot of the other religions around the world. And then you're getting like into the things where you have these sites which are sacred to at least two of the three, like, and Christian to some things. We fought crusades about it, but like I think it would be. At this point, you're just kind of like, well, I think most United States would kind of be like,
in Rome.
It would be like, do we really need like some of these things?
We'll build a new one.
Just being wrapped up in pieces where it's just like, okay, just this rock this is sacred, and you're like, I don't know. My whole thing was that the United States is always kind of set up to support Israel because it's like they've always been, in a strategic sense, they've always been the foothold in the Middle East. Like if you were going to have if there were a need to deploy like a wide scale of like ground troops, you're going to do it through Israel because they're the only ones that you have like a positive relationship with, that would be like okay, yes, we'll let you land
Yeah,
troops
help
and
us.
set up, set up command posts and whatever. If you had to do that, like you would be able to do it through Israel. And then also being but I don't know. It's hard for anybody, like for me to see like, Iran or anybody, like any of the other kind of big players pulled into some of this stuff, because it's like the United States has like 1 or 2 aircraft carriers like parked out there, and one of those is enough to level a country. Like it just,
but
easy.
Iran's got nuclear weapons, right?
It doesn't even matter. Like an entire carrier group, plus like, if you really wanted to get nasty about it, like you want to get like subs, like if you want to have like nuclear equipped subs, wouldn't even matter. Like how many nukes would they possibly have? Like you're going to fire one in a carrier group, intercepted. Like,
yeah.
Like
you got to think with today's day and age, like firing any kind of ground-based nuke, it's like, you're basically blowing it. It's getting blown up.
I don't even know if Iran has like enough range to like launch a nuke, like to get it out into the Gulf and then try to hit a carrier group. Like,
yeah,
it seems like a waste of.
I don't know. And then I just think about their friends too. And you look at China and their area denial strategy. Like we got nothing out there. Right,
like in the Pacific. Yeah, talking about like Pacific,
South China Sea and shit like that. Like they've completely shut down everything from going in there.
Is it just a missile defense thing, like kind of like that Israel's Iron Dome or whatever?
Well, exactly, no, they're just like they control the waters, and I mean,
but that's what they're like. They're investing, instead of having like Dan saying like the carriers, the subs, and all that. They're basically investing in like missiles capabilities to outmaneuver these ships, so they don't have to have those.
I can't say any names, and I will never say any names. But I know someone who may or may not, a friend of a friend of a friend, who may or may not be on like a Navy ship of some sort. And they say that like recently going through there, it's like
his name Davey.
No, and they'll
in the Navy.
They'll be
life.
Going and they'll be like just them like Chinese boats and our boats just side by side, and like they have like gunners like and you're just waiting, and you just like float by each other. They'll tell you, he's like, it's fucked because you're escorting these fisher boats to go so they can go fish, and like China's like flexing out there.
You know who's not who's not flexing in this war at all, and will never be able to flex, is Canada. We got nothing.
Yeah. Well, no,
buddy. We committed the most. We committed the most atrocities in World War II. As soon as war pops off, man, Canadians, we commit all the war crimes.
All those pent up years of peace.
We're like, damn, Canada, save some war crimes for us.
Yeah. The craziest thing to me is like, and it's so hard when we're looking at all the media and stuff coming out, is like, I always kind of wonder in the back of my mind where I'm like, we just feel like, we kind of have like the hero complex, you know what I mean? Like in the West, where we're like, we're the good guys. You know what I mean? Our countries are the good guys. We're on the good side. We live like this, but like, if then you hear stuff like, I heard a good point of like, what was NATO created for, right? Back into the Cold War. And it was to stop the spread of the Soviet Union. Well, the Soviet Union's been disbanded forever. So what's like, NATO just continued to like grow. And it's like, part of me wonders, I'm like, fuck, like, are we 100% the good guys, or is it one of this things?
I mean, NATO
like,
still
sides are kind
NATO
of shitty?
Still has. I would still argue that NATO has a justification to exist, because it's like you still have like conflicts in there. Like even when the Soviet Union disbanded, there was still like widespread, like you had other like the former Soviet bloc countries that you were having people like you got your like Slobodan Milosevic's and shit, like warlords like basically rising up in those areas and like taking control. Like it still had
the power vacuum created by the withdrawal of the Soviet Union to those countries took 40 years to resolve.
And still some of them are like to this day, like we even what is it, the Bosnia Herzegovina, like even there is still like, because we talked about it during the Bosnian pyramid stuff, like that place has been war torn for generations, and still like some of it is like, NATO still has reason to exist. Like it's still
there's no reason to just disband NATO just because there's no Soviet Union, let's just disband NATO. I mean, it's stronger in numbers is like a It's a proven tactic. if all of a sudden there's no nations like that, there's no legality. Like, Russia did just go take Ukraine, Poland, and Slovakia. Oh, I guess you're like, there's no like alliance to be like to try and stop that. I'd be like, okay, I guess they did that.
Yeah. So that's kind of why you need this. But I would also, there's also like, there's something to be said about like military alliances and like those ones, military and logistical. But you also have things like soft power, like the World Trade Organization. Like you had to think about like these kinds of things where it's like, for example, like China just almost recently joined the World Trade Organization after 15 years of trying to join. They were sitting there and they had to it's not an easy process to join the World Trade Organization. It's like that opened up a lot of avenues for a lot of countries. Like when you're in, like you want to be in because that's how you're going to make money. And China knows that. That's
so weird that they're not in because they're already the biggest trader.
Well, not before, but it opened up a lot more, like their economy and stuff like that. Like they knew that they needed to get in order to access those markets and to access those markets to consume their products. They needed to be a part of the World Trade Organization because that is, like you said, it's power in numbers, not just like military wise, but like economic wise now, because since most of the economies now are all it's all globalized, it's all spread out, like the markets are now everywhere. We just are, and being able to access those is like a huge boon to your country's like it's economy and to some extent like culturally, innovation wise, technology, videos, like all of that stuff.
I keep seeing videos and stuff about how China's basically screwed themselves and like they're a ticking time bomb of economic collapse because their one child policy. They just do like their
for the Great Reset, they fucked their shit up in the Great Reset where they basically killed all the sparrows, or they're like, we're going to kill all the birds because they keep eating all the rice. And you're like, that wasn't a good idea. And then you just had like years of famine. Then your one child policy. It's just, it was.
Well, they got the one child policy. And then isn't there like so much corruption in their fucking like stock market?
I mean, you only have like
they don't release their numbers, I don't think is the big problem.
Yeah, like I heard it's like on the brink of a financial collapse, right? But like,
well, they had
they're still the world's greatest trade partners.
Yeah,
right?
One of their largest was it Evergrande or whatever? One of their largest like real estate speculation company. I can't remember exactly what they do, but they're like one of the bigger like real estate ones. They went under. They declared bankruptcy, and that was a huge thing. And so there is information stuff to support that China's never really been giving its real numbers, even its population. There's this one I think some reports have kind of said that China's been overstating their population sizes for years. And they said they based this on that thing where actually it was like it was something done by the Japanese, where the Japanese essentially based their population estimates on the amount of table salt imported into China, because China wasn't giving the real numbers. And they were like, okay. And it could be like, I think they said like, they've been overstating their population numbers by the millions and being like, because I think they figured out like the average consumption of like average house consumption of
per year or something,
like per household or something like that. And then they took that and they worked it out to be like, no, this seems like it seems like they're overstating their numbers for a while.
The population collapse in China is interesting because technically in Canada, we have a population collapse, but we have so much immigration that it negates it, because not people are having kids. Like the average kid's like 1.5 in a Canadian family.
Yeah, so we just opened immigration to
make up the numbers,
to plug this.
But no one's.
Which most modern countries have to do that.
Yeah, like no one. How many people are immigrating to China? That's what I mean. Like how many people? We should get to China. Seems like
allowed to?
I don't know.
I think they tried through for a while. I think they had because China was like trying to. And they still are, I guess, to some extent. They're still trying to like establish, relationships within like Africa, like in those, and just, get a hold of those kinds of resources that are still available there.
In Africa, that's what they kind of went the way that the States went, and like post World War II is helping developing nations, building electrical grids and sanitation and all this stuff in return for some resources that country may
also putting them into a tremendous amount of debt and being 100%. Like, hey,
and now you owe us forever.
Yeah. So we own you is what they're trying to say. Yeah.
The one thing that is kind of been in the back of my mind that has, not worried me is that like doing the reading and stuff is like when the States had the Great Depression, like the one thing that like really pulled them out was World War II, and just like everything the economy just turned to like fucking war machine, baby. And just like, that's what kind of pulled the United States out of the Great Depression. When you see China like this on like, they don't release their numbers, does that motivate them to kind of like escalate something, in the next coming years? Because I mean, like we're at a point where like if they tomorrow wanted to go and, invade Taiwan or take over Taiwan, like there's so many conflicts going on right now that it's like, it seems like that would be like, what are we going to do? Because we start fighting on one, you're just pushing all these superpowers together against
well,
you, right?
The thing with the Taiwan, say they did go to war, say they try to invade Taiwan and Taiwan tried to resist and they ended up blowing up a bunch of factories or whatever happened. Taiwan is like the leading
semiconductors.
Yeah, the lead semiconductors and like those fine electronics. So if that goes down, all modern war,
like 90% of the most advanced superconductors are
all the equipment that every army needs comes out of Taiwan. So it seemed like just counterintuitive to destroy.
Well, it makes sense why they want to take it over.
But they would have to do it like but doing it would be like
Taiwan would have to join willingly. Be like, okay, we're part of China.
So that's why Biden was like, we will go to war if they invade fucking Taiwan.
But the crazy thing about hypothetically, this World War III does act like more countries get involved.
Let's just hold on one second. Let's just remember World War I and World War II at the time were not called World War I. It's not like they're like, this is the World War. These were like skirmishes like this that later in history were labeled as World War I and World War II.
Skirmishes on a much bigger scale.
Yeah.
World War I, when you have 100,000 people dying on a battlefield because they haven't seen machine guns before.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But yeah, like because everything's so interconnected and most stuff comes out of China, probably if you go check all like, say you own a bunch of like military type equipment, I bet you if you go look at like your lenses on your scopes and your body armor, made in China, everything's made in China. So if you go to war with China and they just turn off the taps flowing outwards, you got no equipment. Like very few, like nothing's made in North America truly. It might be assembled.
That's because
that goes the other way for China too, because it's like China, you go to war with this and we're not going to buy your stuff anymore. Like
that's what I mean. So like it's so interconnected. Like going to war with each other would just be for everyone. It wouldn't work.
Yeah, but like the crazy thing about that is when I was doing research for this too, is the fact that like you look at that, like the U.S. and China or North America, huge trade partners with China to this day, even though we're on the brink of war. You know who fucking Germany's biggest trade partner was pre-World War I? Britain.
Makes
I mean, they're right
that's
there.
Fucking crazy.
Well, two of the largest economies, like they're
and pre-World War II supposedly.
Fucking like, war is the craziest fucking thing.
It's nuts. It's almost like we need to boost both of our economies. So let's go to war.
War is done by the bankers, man. They've been saying that for years because Germany bombs the shit out of England in World War II to the point where they almost didn't make it. And then in the end, they go bomb Germany just as bad. And then Germany's exploded. Now they're both just blown up. And now to this day, or till recently, they're part of the European Union. You could just go, you're German, you go to England, same thing, doesn't matter. It's like it never happened. So we just blew the shit out of each other for years and be like, eh.
One of the conspiracies I've seen floating around on like this kickoff of this recent conflict is that Israel's been handing out offshore oil rights to BP and ENI that are on the waters that are claimed by Palestine. They've done this since the war started. So they've basically started, blowing up the Gaza Strip, cutting their power off, cutting their communications. Then they're like, "Hey, British Petroleum, you want some drilling rights off the shore there?" Of course. Is
there lots of oil in the Mediterranean? I didn't know that.
I guess there's some big reserves. I saw like a map posted where there was some oil. There's already oil out there.
There's some oil out there.
Yeah. Trying to get that drainage.
Yeah. I mean, I know you mentioned earlier, like Gaza was landlocked. Isn't it not Gaza, the Gaza Strip, not on the coast? I'm pretty sure it's on the coast.
It is on the coast, I thought.
Yeah, but you said landlocked. You said it's a landlocked nation, like a landlocked.
Did I?
Yeah.
Well, I'm stupid.
So do they not have a port? Do they have a? That's what I mean. Do they not have a port then? I was wondering. Like they
I don't
have no
think
trade.
they do anymore.
I don't think they run their ports. I'm pretty sure Israel run. Like they I think Braden means by landlocked. Like they're stuck at they don't have a way out.
Yeah,
the borders are all controlled, whether it's to Egypt to Israel.
Yeah, I don't think you're just getting on
a
a ferry boat and heading out off the coast.
Now, and on the other side, like the West Bank, which is also Palestine, that's what Jordan, a border with Jordan.
Yes,
and Jordan is Arab country. They're not Christianity or anything. That's the same religions. That's such a fucking You're just like you got this one country just stuck right in the middle of just surrounded.
It's just, but like I said, it's all like also in that thing. Like you can say like they're all countries. Whether they're they're all Muslim countries. Yeah, but the Muslims aren't all the same. Like there are a lot of tribal. Like
for sure. Yeah,
there's a lot of tribal conflict that goes in with there, and it can be like same. It can be Muslim religion, but they hate each other. Like they're just to the core. It's like. It's a very charged and just like stuff that goes back. Like it's so ingrained in culture here where it's like, you'll have entire textbooks that kids are learning about how to hate certain people, or it'll be like these things have been, these atrocities or these slights have been held against our people for thousands of years. And they're going to be like, when your kids are raised to hate, and to some extent,
man, it's like it'd be like the equivalent of the U.S. saying we like Canada's resources, so we're just gonna take it over, and then forever we don't have the military to fight back, and they let us exist here, but we're not our own country. Like there's nothing we could do if America was like, we're gonna take over Canada now.
Well, no, because America would have to have some type of sacred thing in Canada. They'd say, "Oh, well, this is our secret lake.
Bald eagles here.
Lake is sacred to us."
Ogopogos.
Yeah, the Ogopogo is sacred.
Ogopogo is sacred.
So we're actually
taking Bigfoot Sasquatch is an American cryptid, and we need to.
Everyone knows if the states ever invaded us, it's just because they want to win gold at the Olympics in ice hockey. That's why. All right,
take our best players.
Well, we need to let the pros back in.
Yeah.
You hear that they're making they want to add flag football to the Olympics.
Who plays flag football?
And let professionals play. Like how hilarious would that be?
Yeah.
The United States would fucking pillage everyone.
That's one of those things where it's
be
like
number 2, but it wouldn't be close.
Canada would probably not be number 2.
We're the only
NFL when they wanted to add like
Muay
Thai. They wanted to add like Muay Thai to like the Olympics. Like
awesome.
They also
that would be fucking
people
rad.
gonna die.
Olympic boxing needs.
They just added field lacrosse. I'm pretty sure too.
That's badass.
They're desperate to get people to watch the Olympics. Is what it is. They're like, we'll have every fucking event, and we're not gonna let Russia participate in any of them.
No. All right, just before we keep going, we got more to talk about, but we got to take a short break. Grab a beer. We're gonna be right back.
So we're talking potential disastrous World War III outcomes and what would happen. I mean, could you guys picture, like, where do you guys see this? Like, do these conflicts just kind of drag on like previous wars were just in for a decade of conflict in these sections and then it just kind of fizzles out? Or do you see this as turning into something bigger than what it
I can
is?
Tell you, I know exactly when it's going to happen. I know because it's just fucking for sure. Because right now, both the Detroit Lions and the Vancouver Canucks are good.
Yeah, so
it's going to happen right before they both go to like
playoffs.
Lions are going to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, before they take their championship,
and the Canucks go to the Stanley Cup, and it's just gonna the world's gonna. It's gonna be like Bane. Bane's gonna show up and blow everything up. And it's just like, no, you don't get this.
I could definitely see like, because wasn't there news in the States, Stan, that they were reintroducing legislation to like prepare for a draft?
I think if they reintroduced it would never pass. That would never. No. I mean, somebody could have reintroduced it. There's a lot of stuff that gets kind of like put into written on there, but that would have never happened. Like that'll never happen. Never. It will never have the legislative support, like the support to pass something like a draft. Like it won't.
Well, but I mean, if something were to pick up here, like
even then, it's like you don't. I would have to say like it. the way that we fight wars is completely different than when we did back in the 40s and the 50s and the 1900s. Like like that whole comparison I always remember hearing that's like, oh, China's got this many like standing army, like they have this many people, and like we don't have enough machine gun bullets to
we
kill.
don't have bullets.
Yeah, we don't have bullets. And I'm like, we don't use
too.
bullets. We use missiles. We drop missiles on there. We drop we drop bombs that have like they count them in thousands of tons of TNT.
I love it. This is fucking America Dan.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm like,
America.
have you not
Fuck yeah.
I'm like, have you not seen some of the weapons that have deployed over in Ukraine? Like some of those ones that shoot like fucking tungsten rods out of them. Like they just like explode, and it's just like hundreds of tungsten rods that just explode and just like slam into the ground, and like you kill like hundreds of people and like one rocket. And you're like, yeah, okay. So if people want to,
infantry is not going to win.
Yeah, infantry doesn't win wars. Like it's like you put them all in a tank. And
directed energy weapons, dude.
Yeah,
we just we vaporize everyone from space.
Paint all our stuff blue. And
do you think this would be? Do you think it would be
blue
more
camo?
Blue camo,
like
blue.
That's why the NATO helmets. That's why the NATO helmets are blue. The NATO peacekeeping forces. That's why they're blue. Or no, it's UN. Sorry, the UN ones are blue.
Do you think that like if this were to kick off in a higher, because I can't remember if it was Iran or something, they said that like if Israel like rolls in like for a ground invasion, that like the states would not be clean of this war, like they would bring the war to the states' doorstep. Do you think if that were the case,
that guy said that at the United Nations in New York, actually?
Yeah,
he pretty much
like what else are
that
what else
guy's
are
got
they
a
gonna
set
say
on him in New York?
He's standing in New York and he's talking about this potential for further conflict, and he says in summarize, if the U.S. gets involved, no one will be spared. Pretty much is what he said.
I mean, what else are you going to say at that point? Like, I mean,
dude, in New
that
York,
person, like, it's
buddy,
kind of being like
that's talking
if you got
shit
the U.S. involved
at the away game, buddy. You're talking shit to the USA's home crowd, dude.
Yeah, I'd really hate to be like this, but I'm like, if they tried to pull like another like 9/11 or something like that, we'd glass it. It just total destruction. Like, I mean, it's.
Well, they didn't do that the first time. It took 20 years.
I know, but we were trying to like occupy and like root them out. But it's like you just bomb that place. I mean, well, it's trying to say like bombing Afghanistan back to this in Stone Age, but it's like they already were kind of the Stone Age in some of their country. Places. Yeah, like most of the country is already pretty much just above
Afghanistan.
Yeah,
but not Iraq.
But like these places, you're just like even Iraq just got like bombed. Like just like it's like if you want. I mean, they also don't have that much. It's like, but I don't think the states that also might not be motivated to be like, why would we have to do it when Israel's doing a plenty job of just doing it themselves?
Yeah, that's true. But like if we got pulled into a greater conflict, like a legit World War III where superpowers are going after each other, do you think this would just turn into like, because my fear is always right away, it's going to be communications like we've seen it in like with the Israel-Gaza war right away, where it's like, buddy, all communications, it's like a blackout there, right? Like they can't, nothing's coming in, nothing's coming out. But would these countries just instantly start going after each other's like communication satellites, infrastructure?
That's just part of, that's just part of warfare now.
Because like
you have to do that.
That shit's all free to like if it's in space, like that's free to attack. It's not like a land-based. You know what I mean? It's like, you're shooting it in the sky. It's hard
to attack.
Yes,
it's still hard to get a rocket out there. Like you still have to get it out there and somehow hit. Like it's one of those things where I think about Star Trek, where like the last Star Trek movie where Scotty's, it's like trying to hit a bullet from with another bullet while riding on a horse. Like you're launching a rocket out there, but you're still like, it has to have the fuel to get out there, and you're going to take out one satellite. And we're like, you think like we don't have redundant systems to be like, we have more than one. Like, it just comes kind of silly to be like, okay, but like a cyber attack, like a wide scale cyber attack on infrastructure and stuff has always been like, that's always kind of been at the top of the list of threats. I think I mentioned this a couple times where it's like the United States, we put out like a threat report like every year, and then there's always like cyber attacks always on there, terrorist attack, biological attacks, all these things have always been on there. But like, like they've been ramping up the like just recently, President Biden like put out the whole like sweeping order about like AI, like addressing the threat potential threats of AI. And people said he got that from watching the last Mission Impossible movie. I haven't seen it, but I guess AI plays
he watched
some part
it and
of it.
he's like, holy shit, this is serious.
Well, that's how some of these things. That's how some of these things kind of come up.
It's a documentary.
That's how some of these things come up, which is kind of cool because it's like, some of these movies will dictate policy.
We need Ethan. What's his name in that? Ethan
Hunt.
Ethan Hunt.
Yeah. Who's also Jack Reacher, I guess. Like he's also Jack Reacher. Or
No. What's that? Alan Richardson or whatever.
What's Tom Cruise? He played the other guy.
He did play.
Well, he played Jack Reacher, but it didn't count.
But that's a bad.
He didn't
Jack
count.
Reacher.
That Alan Richardson.
Yeah, Richardson. He plays a way better.
Why
doesn't it count?
Because he didn't look
fucking
anything
5'7".
like him.
Yeah,
Jack Richard's a brick shithouse.
Yeah, I know. Okay,
he's a blonde, jacked, huge, pretty boy that just beats people mercilessly.
He's Johnny Bravo.
Listen, I appreciate my short kings. All right, I love Tom Cruise. Cole Trickle, he's my fucking dude.
Yeah,
He should have been fucking Jack Reacher.
I would agree with Dan on the U.S. military, even though it has, I think, shrunk a little bit, and they're struggling to fill some positions. It is still the biggest Air Force and Navy and that the Earth has ever seen.
Aircraft. It's hard to like people who haven't seen them like comprehend the size of like an aircraft carrier. There are 5,000 people on an aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
On an aircraft carrier,
that's nuts.
They're huge, and they
like
have
30 craft on top.
Yeah, you field like an entire air fleet on there, and you're just like you need maybe like 10 aircraft to kind of like. To kind of like suppress a city. You're just like it's nuts.
I still think what ended World War II will eventually stay a great conflict of World War III is the potential for just mass destruction by everyone, because no one wins in that situation. It's just the end of civilization. If the doomsday comes true and someone fires a nuke and then someone fires retaliation and then they just fire them all, they're like, fuck it, fucking launch them. You can't shoot them all down. They're going to land. Every country is screwed. And it just, no one wins. There's no point, right? I know there's psychopaths that are in power in a lot of places, but at some point you're like, well, then everyone's gone. My country's gone. Everyone's just gone.
Well, I was reading somewhere that like you mentioned psychopath, like just to comment on that, it was saying that like technically that's a strategy, like the madman strategy, where it's like, I think it was like somebody said it was like pioneered by the Richard
nuts?
Pretty much like, or it was somebody said it was like kind of like conceived by like Richard Nixon, where it's like, if you act crazy and like everybody will make a lot more people reluctant to call your bluff because you're going to be like, you want to get nuts? Let's get fucking nuts. I'm crazy.
Well, like honestly, how many people, like even just out of us, who thought when everything popped off and Putin wasn't successful off the jump, who thought he was going to fucking escalate to like some serious chemical warfare, fucking scary shit?
And the people he kind of just came off that way. He came off that way in some interviews and stuff. You're like, he's like ready to go like scorched earth.
That's the other scary thing though about everyone having these nuclear deterrents is that it's also in the sense where they're like, okay, we're going to invade this other country. Well, we're not using nukes. So what the fuck are you going to do? Right. Like, well, I mean, it's almost like a flex because they're like, they've really put everyone else in a tight spot because they're like, do we join this conflict? But now it elevates the chances of the nuclear option being used to really high, or do we just kind of fucking back out and just?
That's the crazy thing about the Russia-Ukraine war is it is kind of a World War II style war where there is a lot of casualties on the ground. Yeah. Like they don't even know the numbers. Like hundreds of thousands of people are dead in that war.
And it's even like even the greater cost will be later down the road because it's like you have these large areas that are just covered in mines now. Like that. I mean, there's countries that are still digging up mines. Yeah.
50 years from now, some kid's going to be walking through those fields of Ukraine and just get blown up.
There's like explosive. There's unexploded ordnance
donate to
all
war
over the place.
It's going to be lots coming.
Yeah. I mean, so in the sense that like, we can't have World War II conflict. We probably won't have it on the same scale, but it did happen and it is happening in the Ukraine right now. Like, yeah. And that's what's that scenario? Because that whole thing was so crazy because for years people are saying how corrupt Ukraine government was, blah, 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 all this stuff. And then the new government comes in. Now we've got full support. But then in the eastern region of Ukraine is heavily Russian. They probably have a lot of like what do you do there? Do we draw a new border again? Like, do we do the same thing?
on the side of being like, okay, if you want to get like kind of crazy about like the conspiracy, okay, say you want to be like,
I want to get nuts.
Okay, you want to get nuts.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And we'll say like, okay, there's people will say like, oh, okay.
Tell us how the frogs are turning gay.
Well, let's say like, want to say like, okay, war is good for business. Okay. It's only good for, some businesses, right? Yeah. And only mostly like in the short term, but being like those things would probably not have that much interest in having like a full scale, global war. There's no money in that. But having a somewhat, sustained conflict within the sustained conflict within certain places within the world, that would more money, because it's like, oh, we can produce weapons, we can put them in there, and we can just be like, we just deploy PMCs and stuff like that. I remember when PMCs used to be the big thing.
What's
I have
PMCs?
a bunch of stuff like private military things, like mercenaries, like Wagner Group, Blackwater. Like Blackwater, what was the first one? The South Africa one. They used to call it executive decisions.
Yeah, they do the best war crimes. Those guys.
Yeah, dude, I remember having a South African guy in like Thailand, and I'm pretty sure he was a mercenary at some point. Like he became a teacher, but it's like somebody was telling. He's
that's
like,
what Tyrone's trying to do right now.
So
he's gonna learn real fast.
But it's like, yeah, you could have like these companies like putting out stuff like that, like providing weapons and logistical support and all of that stuff to those ones. Those businesses have more interest in doing them rather than like a global war. It's having just like sustained conflict after conflict and being like, okay, we can do this, and that makes us money.
Do you think
there's no money in like a large scale war? So
on that kind of conspiracy where this is just the next kind of lineup of this sustained battle for at least Russia, like the Russian Ukraine one, is this just a sustained conflict that kind of props up a portion of the economy? Is it fair to say then, like, maybe that's what the states were doing too, but then the difference between the states and Russia is that we'll get governments in power, like voted into power, that run on the promise of pulling out of these conflicts, and then we pull out of these conflicts, and then we're like, fuck, man, our economy's hurt. What's the difference here? And they're like, you want to know what the difference is? We're not fucking fighting in that war that we've been in for the last 12 years.
I mean, I could also say that there's some type, you could probably support an argument saying that, war is almost like inherent in human culture. Like there's always a war going on somewhere.
Always.
Like there's some kind of conflict going on somewhere. And most of these companies there is a demand for war, and there is the supply side. You have you got your Northrop Grumman's and your Boeings and your other companies.
Isn't technically North and South Korea still at war?
Yeah.
They've never not been at war.
How long have they been war?
Forever.
How long have they been
in DMZ?
World War II. Since the end of World War II, when we went and bombed the shit out of North Korea.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And they'll be at war until some guy builds a giant satellite that can shoot a giant laser across the thing.
I think in the Korean War, the United States and allies bombed every significant target available in Korea.
It's a lot of bombing.
Like insane. Like there's leveled it to the ground.
So there's that. I don't know. Like I played a bunch of Metal Gear Solid games, and those are all like World War III stuff. And like Metal Gear Solid 4 was essentially like the world is constantly at war. All PMCs are deployed to these places. Some of the weapons companies are making money just selling fucking little walking robots that sound like fucking dinosaurs. And you're just like, that makes sense.
All I know is
this sounds realistic.
We have to do whatever we can in the West to make sure we end up on top at the end of World War III, because I can't have things flipping, because I would not last in a sweatshop. I just couldn't do it.
We need to invest money.
That's kids' work.
Buddy, you would turn any shop into a sweatshop.
We need to invest money into
any type of labor, and you start
engineering.
If anyone can get out of working in a sweatshop, it would be you. You would find a way to piss off your boss of the sweatshop so bad that you would find a way not to work.
Because they'd
murder you, but maybe not. Maybe you'd get some blackmail on him. You'd hold him accountable. He'd give you a little special treatment. He'd hate you for it.
Oh yeah. Well, whatever. I unionize the workers in the sweatshop. Yeah. Do we know when the last actual nuclear weapon was detonated and tested? Has there been any in recent times?
Well, there's no testing clause, but I think Russia has just rescinded it, and I think
they stepped out of theirs. They pulled out of it.
Right, but here's my question: is because one of the
1961,
2017.
What?
The most recent confirmed nuclear test occurred September 2017 in North Korea.
Yeah, North Korea.
Oh yeah, North Korea. Yeah.
The last Soviet test was in 1990.
Because like I always kind of wondered in my head, you know, we talk about fucking aliens on this podcast. Is that like the last kind of, let's say, giant flap of UFOs came like post World War II and during World War II, if you count the Foo Fighters and stuff like that. And then, you know, there's endless accounts of stories and, you know, accounts of these things buzzing military bases, disarming, you know, nuclear facilities. And that I wondered that, like, you know, maybe this is one of those things where it's like every country on Earth is like, our nukes don't actually fire anymore. Like, we can't fire them, but we can't say anything because we're not sure if the other country knows or they're in the same boat. And so we're all just, we're not testing. Yeah, you're not testing. Okay,
you got to shoot the nuke, and it just like a puff of dust comes out the top.
It just comes out and just flops onto the ground.
Can we have that reality? That's optimal. I'd be good with that.
Well, it's interesting.
Everybody just
because
flexing.
Yeah,
if you think about like
empty tubes, no actual warheads.
Yeah.
If you think about the heightened conflict back in World War II and the amount of like UFOs fucking popped off like after that, and it's like
because everybody was test piloting all the sweet Nazi tech.
Yeah,
that's true.
But like we're starting to see like another like kind of resurgence of like UFOs and like pop culture and stuff, and like eyewitness accounts and military buzz, and in this time of conflict, it makes you think that like, okay, like are these things maybe attracted to periods on Earth that are of height conflict, to see what we're doing, to see what we're testing, to see what we're firing off?
It could be. I mean, that's kind of the whole thing where it's like, we have this mounting movement, I guess, or it's kind of always been there, but now it's kind of like more in the news and stuff. We have, you know, the Grush Hour
podcast
at
trademark.
This point where you have, where like there's this push for like, okay, does the USA have UFOs? Have they had UFOs? Have we reverse engineered UFOs? And that's always kind of the weird thing where it's like, so, you know, if that being the case, and you're being like, okay, like, even if it's not just like nukes and stuff, what if it's just like, you know, some countries have reverse engineered, you know, certain technologies, extraterrestrial technology or something to some extent. I mean, it's probably like, if you recovered an alien craft, you probably wouldn't be able to. I watched Independence Day. They only learned how to, like, this is up, down, left, and right, like on the joystick. That's how they had it backwards, right? I would assume that some it would be a little bit better than that, but you know, discovering that, like pushing out a disclosure to be like, okay, this country has alien tech, and being like, review that. And then, you know, what if that's like the next nuclear deterrent, and being like, no, we've got alien tech. What if this whole thing, the whole Grush report, what if this is just the USA flexing, being like, yeah, we've got alien tech.
Okay,
yeah, maybe we do. Maybe we do. Maybe we don't.
I got a counter conspiracy for you. That I just thought of. All right. Like, remember back in like the Soviet Union era where there's like, they're fucking sniffing out the commies, right? There's hidden commies everywhere, right? They've infiltrated the US and North America, right? You gotta, they're hidden everywhere. What if this like recent like push for disclosure is really because like other countries have intel and they've actually just put enough like willful idiots in positions of power in the government of the United States that they're like, we want to know what you have. And there's just like, they're just pushing this narrative.
But I'm
like,
saying that's like, if they want to know what we have, it's like, but that's another deterrent to being like, we have
keep fucking tech around. You go find out.
Oh yeah, buddy.
Because it's like, okay, not only do we have nukes, we also have alien tech. And this just reminds me of those times where the CIA.
Pretty sure America has the fucking sword from Halo.
Yeah. That reminds me of like the stuff like during the Cold War era, if we're, you know, reaching back that far, and being like, you know, when the CIA was disseminating information about, or no, the Soviet Union was disseminating information, be like, yeah, we've got psychers. Like we've got psychic mind bullets. You know, we've got people, the men who stare at sheep, you know, all that kind of stuff. And you're just like, yeah, we've got all that stuff. And they're like, you know, US is like, do they? do they have that? Well, we could say that too. And like, we've got psychers too. And then, just
got a bunch of we got people on LSD. We don't know what's happening to them.
Yeah. We've got zombies. Like we've got LSD zombies.
We got the X-Men.
Yeah. So it's just
but then like part of me is like, part of me wonders like, because man, it's like, when was guerrilla warfare? Like that was really kind of like
that's always been a thing, kind of since technically but like, you say the Revolutionary War, but
I think it's
where
been
it's
around
like
long time.
Yeah.
But like that style, it's like
when you think about it though, you think about
Vietnam.
I think about Vietnam. That's where it was.
Sure.
That's what they made it famous. I kind of think of like, if we're seeing like in like 25, 30 years, they're going to be writing about this time that like this time of heightened conflict, there was so much shit going around that we had no way. Disinformation and shit we didn't even know that was going on. Like imagine if you think about what's going on in just Canada, because I can't speak for the States. I'm sure it's bad, but like we have the fucking craziest fentanyl crisis going on of people doing fentanyl. And like, where is the majority of fentanyl coming from?
China.
Right.
That's where I think
Mexico probably too.
I think we put on some legislation to like trying to curb that. I think
but a lot of problem with it now. It's not even just fentanyl anymore. Like people are starting to get tolerances to fentanyl now because they've been using it for so long. Like fentanyl is a lot of people's drug of choice, just most of the time because it's all they can get and because it's cheaper. But like now they're cutting it with fucking like animal tranquilizers, like fucking xylazine and benzos, and it's so much worse.
But my thing is like
fentanyl is really not the big bad.
Our drug addicts are the best drug addicts.
Beautiful drugs.
Canada's good at two things: hockey and drugs.
But part of my thing is I'm like, I wonder if that's like an easy way to like you release these like destabilizing drugs into communities, right? Targeted like
fucking crack
epidemic, right? Yeah. Exactly.
But the crack epidemic,
it's just like, but people are using like,
but the US did that to themselves.
But like, their own fault. Could you imagine if foreign nations are doing this? Cause like, if it's coming from China, like, are they funding it? Like there's Dan, and you might not know this, but there's been like reports of like secret Chinese fucking police stations operating in Canada.
I've heard those.
Not reports,
right?
Actual.
That's legit.
That's legit. To keep eye on
communist
on their citizens.
China, like the People's Liberation Army, like posts in Canada to keep track.
Didn't you guys mount an investigation or something about that? Like, didn't you guys know the whole thing about that? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a big deal.
Like, you think they're intentionally poisoning?
Destabilizing nation. Think about how much
they're trying to keep eye on like Chinese.
Not to sound like a piece of shit. Not to sound like a piece of shit. And I'm gonna sound like a piece of shit. I don't mean to sound like a piece of shit. I don't. I promise you, I don't. You're destabilizing for the most part populations that are already massively stable.
You're just
you're not going after.
That's the thought. Like it's like
no, you know what I mean? Like that's. Don't get me wrong. There are the people who go from like traumatic injuries that are taking pain control that elevate to that. I understand that, but for the most part, like you're destabilizing.
I guess you could also be. You could also kind of.
I'm going to say is like
a flimsy argument to be like it saps your resources having to deal with that. Like you're
exactly because they know we will, right? They know our governments are going to step in and help these people.
But it's also creating jobs, and it's got its own entire industry. It creates jobs. It has its own industry.
It's almost at the point now where so many people
and I hate to tell you,
jobs, so it can't go away.
Yeah, and like I'll be honest with you too. On top of this, like these people, you think, they're fucking taking up. The biggest thing that they take up are ambulances because none of them go to the hospital. They all refuse. They don't want to go. They tell you to fuck off, right? So they're not taking up hospital beds for the most part. Like it's literally like an industry.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's sad.
Big ambulance.
Not the
ambulance. No, the ambulance is the one thing that we got to stop them from tying up. And that would be great.
And then
we've been pitching like they did in Vancouver for a long time. We just need to get city buses that do loops. They just got a big city bus. Any motherfuckers want to go to the hospital? Anybody need some Narcan? Great, get on board. Narcan them. Keep going.
Some big loop.
Buy some surplus buses.
Or like in the winter, warming buses. Like let them pile on.
Oh man, driving that bus would be a nightmare. It'd be like just I don't even know what
you'd have to be like framed.
I don't know the kind of person that would drive that bus. It'd be just like freaking Mad Max dude.
Whoever's driving that bus, there's $400,000 a year.
It'd be Chris Farley it'd be the Chris Farley type from
from Billy
That
Madison.
Veronica Vaughn.
No, it'd be like, I would always think it's like, what's his name? Tom Hardy from, was it Tom Hardy in Mad Max? Who's the last Mad Max? Was that Tom Hardy?
Yeah.
Tom Hardy.
I just imagine him like driving the bus, just like, just angry. Just all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just
Putting down the cow catcher, just like,
it's a good movie. I'm gonna have to watch it again.
That is a great movie.
I think they're gonna do a prequel.
The other thing that I think is gonna come out sooner or later is like one, it's the other. Okay, the other thing, social media, 100% being infiltrated.
We talked about it.
Well, yeah, that's we did a whole case on that.
That's a fact.
It's the IRA.
Yeah, that's just,
it's another fact.
Yeah.
You and your
IRA.
fucking secret police fact. Bring us something new here.
Yeah. The
go I thought we were getting nuts.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Thought we're
That's a
getting
real
nuts.
thing. Or they're gone now. They're
Okay,
What about AI? Who's going to take control of the AI?
Yeah.
You're a crazy one. What about targeted? Because in Vancouver we have a huge problem with fucking money laundering from China, where you have these rich, ultra rich Chinese people coming, buying up houses, sitting empty, laundering their money empty.
Well, that's
what if you start if you have a country that has an open immigration policy like us, could it be targeted by a foreign country, foreign adversary, by another nation to be like, we're going to go into these communities and then we're going to control the voting in these communities because we're going to outnumber, and then we can change the policy and everything in the democracy based on the rules to how we want. Right? Like it's an interesting.
That's like a really long game though. That's like, you'd have to be playing that's like generations of being like,
it would take a long time.
I've been like a long time. But you could also, it's just like, that's just also,
you could start in Manitoba, like in fucking Turtleford.
Well, there was like,
you love that place.
There was like the
you
one
reference that place regularly.
Because it's the dumbest fucking name of any town.
It's technically, it's not like immigrants, but there was that one, what's his name? The like Guru Rishi or whatever. It's talking about it's in that documentary Wild Country or whatever, where basically a cult moved into like a city in Oregon, town in Oregon, and they kind of like took it over like through like through just going through the government side. Like they took over local government, like ran for positions, voting and stuff like that, and they just moved people in to that city, which is like,
and then they brought the whole cult in and they controlled all the voting, everything.
But it's like,
outnumbered everyone.
Yeah, but it's still like, I mean, it was an effort, but I don't think it ever like fully took, because it's even then, it's just like those kinds of things like fall apart in the end, because then people like figure out what they're doing, and it's like, it's like something happens, like law enforcement steps in or something to figure out. They're like, you guys are running a cult in here, like you guys got, when did they pull in?
They're like, legally we voted the cult in.
What if their plan though is like so they take over these communities and then these houses are left vacant, so they don't contribute to the local economy at all, so it tanks it, and then they can just fucking accrue more.
Well, they're at least still paying property taxes. Very minimum.
Wasn't that always? I mean, that's always been the kind of thing where it's like that's where all the people who move. Because I mean, if you live in China or you're a Chinese citizen, you have to pay taxes, and government gets everything. So it's like, but that's the only way for them to get money is like they don't pay. They don't pay taxes on like property, so they get property outside of their country. Like that's where they put their money. Like they buy money, buy property out there, and then so the Chinese government can't get their hands on the money that's put into those properties. Like it's one of their things. I don't know. That was like a while ago.
It would make.
I mean, if
it would make sense if like if everything's owned by the party and you try and get your money outside the country. That if you're like a smart businessman in China, you probably try and get your money out. Makes sense.
Yeah. I'm not like justifying it. Like that's a policy that, Canada has just let them just buy up as much, because it has become a problem. It has become an issue.
We're cracking down on it though. Like the rentals and shit like that. It's illegal now. You can't do it in here anymore. Airbnb, all that type of shit.
Yeah, and they have to pay taxes on it.
Gone for the most part, but there's still a lot of places you'll be able to do Airbnb. Yeah. Downtown cores, etc. But yeah, they're starting to crack down. Will it make a difference?
Yeah,
probably not. But
God, I hope so.
It's not, because you can't build enough houses. That's the main problem. That's a whole nother case file. What? Yeah. Houses are so unaffordable in Canada, And not just Canada, other countries too, but
US
Canada's terrible.
To some extent too.
Canada's
bad.
Really bad.
Like at this point, I will be holding on to this house to pass down.
I'll never leave this
own a
place
house
ever. This is it.
Yeah.
God, I wish I would have known when I was buying my place just to like stop being a fucking chintz and buy something a little bigger if you could afford it. Because now I'm fucking stuck.
You can't think backwards. You're not stuck. You could sell and move.
Fucking
it just costs you a fortune.
What's our interest rate right now?
Well, you can port your mortgage.
Hey, both you guys could sell your houses and buy a dope property and have a ton of money here, where I am at.
Let's pool our resources and start our own little cult like that other place, and we'll take over
the
town.
local town.
Take over a town.
Let's do it.
All right.
We'll take over Turtleford.
There's some places that's happening here in the United
Minnesota.
States, like probably like freaking like northern Idaho. Probably.
We'll call it Theorisburg.
Theoryburg.
No, we're not far from Idaho. We can move to Idaho, sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's some. I've heard some.
The coast there's nice.
I mean, I don't know. There's some communes out there.
I think Idaho has the only Six Flags close to us too. So we at least have an amusement park.
I don't know.
There's a commune in British Columbia too, Bountiful.
There's some of those compounds out there. You're like,
or Bounty, BC.
Oh.
Yeah,
that sounds like a cult.
Yeah,
I have a cult here too that I rent out the studio to the cult once a week.
Nice.
It requires professional cleaning after they leave, though. That's the only problem.
Is that why all the cameras and the red lights?
That's why the cameras are set up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to lay down the plastic tarps. Like, oh, man.
I don't ask questions. They give me money. They clean and they leave.
Hey, that's all that matters.
Do you see this conflict any way Canada get the only way we're involved is if the states go, right? Like there's like not a fucking chance.
No, I mean we're a NATO nation, so if
you guys
NATO
are just chomping at the bit to do some war crimes. I mean, come on.
Yeah, fucking Vimy Ridge would come in there and blast some Germans and do.
Dude, I read stories in like World War II that Canada would like on ceasefire, we would throw fucking poison food into the other trenches, and we would call a ceasefire and then exchange food and like leave the tins on top, and then we would just shoot them at night when they would come up to get the food on a ceasefire.
Where are you hearing these stories from?
I've read them on various Reddit pages.
Canada War Crimes.
Like war crimes and stuff. Jesus. And it's just like talks about like it apparently Canada has like such a dark history with war crimes and like the whole like Geneva Convention. It's like, dude, most of it's written because of some shit Canadians did in World War II. Like,
I doubt that. We're only in really one more. I guess we're in World War I.
That's why we were inexperienced. We're like, we didn't know that wasn't allowed.
Yeah. You can't do that.
What do you mean? You didn't write it down.
You can't poison people. You can't poison them and shoot them at night. What? Canada's military is abysmal. It's been decreasing year after year for like 20 years.
It was buddy. Back in the JTF 2 days, we were pretty badass.
We suck.
We were ass kickers.
I mean,
JTF.
Canada. I'm sure Canada has some
Joint Task Force too.
I'm sure we have some great people in the military. It's just so small that it really, and we have no, like, as we said, it's not won by badass soldiers. It's won by technology, warplanes, and missiles. We don't have pretty much any of that. Zero. We have no nukes that we know of. We probably have American nukes in Canada, but we don't control them.
Oh, 100%. Nanaimo.
I think I was reading.
Oh, buddy.
There's a sign.
Yeah, 100%.
There's signs. It says no nukes.
It's a nuclear-free area.
Yeah. They're everywhere else other than
I think US has given nukes to other countries, and I know the UK apparently has them, and then like Belgium and like Germany also have like America provided nukes.
Okay.
I'm sure.
Draw the line. If this goes into full World War III, what's the line of who's fighting?
What's going to cause a
NATO.
global conflict? It's an invasion of a NATO country. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So all NATO nations versus Russia.
So wait, I'm gonna fucking butcher. Is it Estonia? Is this Estonia's the NATO country that borders Russia,
There's
right?
2 or 3 of them right there. Yeah.
But that's like the one that's most likely that they're going to invade.
Well, it's Estonia.
I read a fucking thing on a
Estonia
while
and
ago.
Latvia are right beside each other, right on the border with Russia.
I think, it's also like The only one so far that I'm aware of that had like successful like Russian invasion and like reincorporation of the Russian Federation is like Crimea. And like, but that was like a whole like inside job where they basically had control of the entire government at that point. And they threw in that referendum in like a day, and it was like, yep, Crimea is part of Russia now. And people were like running to change their passports. Like, I remember reading about or watching a documentary about that. But yeah, even it's like, I don't know, it just takes so much resources now to be like to invade and occupy a country, like an unwilling country. I mean,
like are Russia and China tight? Like, are they allies?
Not really. They're not allies. Like they're just like, China will give them stuff. They'll like, we'll take your money, like as long as it's worth stuff. But still, like China is just kind of like its own little.
Like if they were like true allies, they'd probably be in Ukraine right now.
They would not. Yeah. I mean, they'll like I said, they'll provide them material and stuff like that, but they're not going to give them troops and stuff. They're not going to give them
because if it really popped off,
so they don't have a formal alliance.
No.
If it really popped off with Russia, North American stuff being the biggest trade partners with China, could you see it like in any avenue where China might go like, hey, we'll be on your side.
Give us Taiwan.
Yeah.
We have Taiwan. I don't know, the thing with the Russia-Ukraine war is crazy because Russia controls like something crazy, like 60% of the energy of Europe. If they just decided to turn it off, you'd freeze Europe, but it also bankrupt Russia. So like that's the same thing. Like they're so interconnected that you can't.
Isn't that the interesting thing? It's like there's so many different nuclear deterrents now that aren't nuclear. You know what I mean? Where it's like
soft
you cut off trade. Yeah,
economic. This is just as important.
You can kill a country. Like many different ways.
What was that fucking the Nord Stream pipeline that just blew up under the 2 kilometers under the ocean, and no one really could figure out who blew it up or why it blew up?
Yeah, I think they're still kind of being like,
it's one of those situations like you did it. You did it.
Well, they're like, did somebody go down there? Did somebody go
Did
somebody go down there and blow it up? Did they they were saying like it looked like it was damaged from like a dragging anchor is like the most recent thing I heard. Like
that's what I mean. Like, but so the world is so interconnected that any massive warfare, there's no like, we're going to take that country over, take the resources, and it's all good. No, it's like, we're going to take that country over, but it's going to cost us 20% of our GDP in trade, and then we're going to go bankrupt.
Set us back like 20 years.
I think we're just in the age of proxy wars. I mean, we just went through 20 years in Afghanistan and Iraq, which really, like, we were there. But there's other countries that were supplying weapons. Nothing. We pulled out of.
I told you, this is Metal Gear Solid. This is just
the United States pulled out of Afghanistan, and it, again, in such a weird way that this like kind of abandoned people at the airport, and they're like, "All right, we're out of here. See ya, peace." All their allies and like all the Afghans were helping America was kind of like left them there. And like, all right.
We left all their stuff there too.
We left we didn't billions and billions of dollars of military gear.
It would cost, but it would cost way more money to like ship all that stuff
to get out. But you're at war with this country or whatever for 20 years, and then you just leave them billions of dollars of gear. Like, all right,
material.
It's like, who are we going to be fighting in 15 years? Them with all this stuff,
with all our gear. Now. It's like the same thing. Now.
But it's going to be all obsolete by then.
And they don't know how to laser guns.
Dude, if you get into it even farther, America's actually given billions of dollars to Iran, and they say it's for education and humanitarian efforts. And then Iran goes, "We can use that money for whatever we want." And you're like, "Okay, so what?" It's
kind of like,
why
you try to do the right thing, and you're just like, at least, and then they just take the money and
here's billions of dollars.
But that's like
education.
Yeah,
we're going to build tanks instead, actually. Thank you.
Yeah, and then you're just funding them to, if they're like, it's wild. It's a wild. It'd be interesting to see if you could step outside and like kind of see what's really going on. You know what I mean? Like, why is this happening? Who's pulling these strings? Why are these things
just
being
fly
done?
on the wall scenario? Like, just get into those fucking the meeting rooms of the head of states of those countries. Like,
I'd love to be like on a trade negotiation thing and just being like how they're like discussing sanctions and stuff like that. How they decide these things. It'd be fascinating.
You know what the one thing that actually kind of does worry me about like this, say World War III is, so we have this Israeli-Palestine conflict, and you having these massive pro-Palestine, free Palestine rallies, which is good, right? So like, yeah, we want Palestine to be free and have its own that's all good. But at the same time, at some of those rallies, it's like pro-Hamas, pro-terrorism rallies in America, in Canada. And you're like, all right, they're both in the wrong in some fashion. So why, like, what's the end goal here? Like, what we're going to rally for this? For what?
It becomes difficult. I mean, it shouldn't be, but it's like, it seems to become difficult to separate a lot of people, like separating Hamas from like Palestine. Like, I mean, Palestinians are people. Like they're people. They're like
they're just kids, people, man. Yeah, just people.
Children. They're all like they didn't want to do this. Like there's probably kids out there just playing soccer.
99%
all this stuff was going on.
People all over the world are just want the same thing, like just pursuit of happiness, a good life for their family, food, like just the regular human things. That's most people. 99%.
I mean, but a lot of Palestinians are denied that on a regular basis.
I get it, and like, but then you go and then you some of these interviews at these rallies are so, you would say, Nazi like anti-Semitism. You're like, but there's just an article.
Scary.
There's just an article I read like today that a lady and somewhere in the United States, I can't remember. I just saw it, but it was she drove her car into a school. That she thought it was a pro-Israel school, or like she thought it was a Jewish school, but it's actually like part of like an extremist organization that's anti-Jewish. And she drove her car into it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can't. Hamas is not all of Palestine, obviously, but I don't know. So I think some people are. I think some people are confused.
Are they a direct product of what has been going on? Then it's like the chicken's coming home to roost.
I wish you could like go and. The rallies would be like just like ceasefire rallies and pro-peace rallies, but they're
no, you got to pick a side.
That's what I mean. They're very
that's the climate we live in right now.
Rally, and they're like, and then there's this pro-Israel Israel rally here, and there's a pro-Pal, and they're like, this is fucking crazy.
There's tons of anti-Semitism going around before this to begin with too, with all the QAnon and stuff and the Jewish space lasers.
Man,
you know what I mean? Like this is just coming to a fucking
to those,
boiling point, right? Like for whatever reason, people they're just such a target for people. I don't.
Since the blood libel,
like the most like a power
like Roman times.
Since I killed Christ.
I mean, it all goes back. Actually, even before that, like
this is karma. I don't know.
Pre-Christ, they were wandering the desert, weren't they? Isn't that the?
Yeah.
I mean, there's still the whole thing there. It's like even like I don't know if it was pre or post Christ, but it was like call it the blood libel, where it's basically like Romans, like in the Roman society, where they're basically saying that like Jews were eating kids and stuff and like sucking their blood, all that kind of stuff. Or
it's
whatever.
like fucking Borat.
But yeah. I mean, it's that. I mean, that's kind of a play. I mean, that's a play on that. Like it's just, but that goes all. I mean, you can look it up. It's an actual thing. Like the blood libel. Like it's just been going on for centuries.
Weren't the Jews blamed for like bubonic plague too? Like
yes, yep. Which was like, yeah, because they just normally, like traditionally, like they kept their places pretty clean. And I think they kept cats. So they kept the rats out. And then people were like, they're never getting the plague. So obviously it's something, you know.
It has nothing to do with those rats that aren't in their houses.
Yeah. So it's not that they keep their stuff clean, like, or, you know.
Well, because it's easier to blame than to clean your fucking house.
Yeah, that's true. Anyways, I'm optimistically, I think that this will be a contained conflict. I hope, and we can find a humanitarian way to free the people of Palestine and bring them part into the world community, because right now they are not. They are not. Yeah. They are just not there. 50% unemployment. There's no job opportunities. There's no way to provide for your family. You're reliant pretty much completely on foreign aid. And on aid
which
of the country,
the
which
leadership of that country, the leadership of the country is taking that aid and
the leadership, Hamas of the country, is using that for military prowess and building tunnels and getting like obviously these are just conversations I think everyone should have in this time. We're just having it now. Yeah. We're obviously not experts at all. It's just like fucking crazy.
It's absolutely not.
Oh, it's not going to stop. I'm sure we're going to got a couple.
I'm sure we'll get a few 1-star reviews.
About world events.
I'm sure we'll get a few 1-star reviews, but
oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but well, that's it. Like, you know what though? At the same time too, is this is just a discussion.
Mm-hmm. It's good. You know what? It's good to talk.
We're just having a fucking discussion,
especially when these are crazy events that you have to talk about. Like, you just have to.
Like when they're
none of us claim to be experts. We're just literally talking about our opinions.
Yeah.
And if I was wrong about some stuff, I probably was.
These are existential matters that affect
we made no solid. We didn't draw any lines in the sand of like, this is our views and we're sticking to them.
No. Yeah, it's I do.
How could you have a view?
Yeah, how do you have like a solid
we
view?
don't live there. We don't. I'm not ingrained in the culture. I don't know. So it's just looking. At, the one thing I do fear is like looking from the outside, from the information that I have got, is I'm like, you see one country that has the means of absolute destruction, and it just looks like they're just obliterating another area that does not have the same means to defend itself. That's what it looks like. And so it's that's always terrible to see, because you're like,
what makes you wonder why they even got into this to begin with? Other than like they knew they would be completely out fucking class.
And then
revenge is a powerful.
I mean, also martyrdom is a big appeal in some of their places.
And it's it's just terrible, because it's like the amount of innocence that's just gonna fucking perish, and probably already has perished.
Well, it's already and
they're just like, you have nowhere to go.
Like,
it's like
UN's already calling for super ceasefire. They're like, you need to stop now. It's like 10,000 people.
Yeah. Oh, and it's like that. All those people, it's like
innocent bystander,
right? It's at some point you're like, man, this is getting closer to genocide than righting a wrong here. So it's it's terrible. You kind of read about these things when you're younger and stuff, and it's kind of a weird thing to live through them as an adult, because it seems like stuff that's shouldn't happen. You know what I mean? Like
it seems like it's already happened and it shouldn't happen.
And it's like barbaric, and you're like, this wouldn't happen today. But I mean, I think that comes from a place of like privilege where we live, that
North America is so heavily protected against any type of invasion
so it's like, I'm sure that's been a daily occurrence for people my age in the same area.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks that in war, in any war of all wars that have ever existed, it's always the civilian who gets destroyed.
It's never the people that
obviously people in the military die, but it's always I mean, in ancient wars, it was the armies got defeated, and then the village was pillaged and women and children taken, and it's terrible. And now it's civilians are hit by rockets and bombs, and they're just trying to hide in their homes and have dinner. Like, this is fucking terrible. There's like, what's this? I mean, and then the West is not like, America is not innocent either. Like, how many innocent people died in Iraq from just like stray missiles, bad strikes, bad intelligence? Like, the civilians always take the casualties, the majority.
Yeah.
ATT calls for a
ceasefire.
A full 12-hour podcast where all the leaders of Hamas and Israel do mushrooms, and we get to the bottom of it peacefully, and we have a good time, and we play some guitar, and we sing some songs.
I heard worse ideas. That's a Henry Kissinger move right there, for sure.
A little bit of mushrooms, world leaders to get together. We solve the problems. We end the violence. We move on with a peaceful end to the conflict. It is absolutely insane.
And if you want to get on some bonus stuff of ours,
this is for our dear.
Patreon.com/Alien Theorist Podcast. You want to support the show. If you're listening to this live, that means Case File 300 was yesterday. And if you're listening to it, Case File 300 is coming up.
That didn't make sense. If it's listening to it live, then it's right now. And then
it's right now.
If you listen to this publicly, then Case File 300 was just recorded. So that'll be fun. I'm really looking forward to that. But if you want to catch it, you know where to find it. Case File 300, it won't matter, because if you're not on Patreon, you're going to miss it live. So no, I thought about that as I started saying. I was like, the math isn't adding up for when this was released. Zelda, we have hold on, Theory of the Week. Yeah, again, give it to your boy. Yeah, you got it. You claimed it early. I'm giving a Theory of the Week to this guy because I didn't realize he was a Patreon supporter, and this is going out to Jose Estrada, because no one on Facebook group gets more posts banned and declined than Jose Estrada.
Literally
Good job.
90. I have to decline so many of those posts because not because I don't like them.
With it.
Not because I don't like them, not because I don't find them interesting, but a lot of the times your posts, my friend, I just know are going to get us flagged and banned
the strike
for the stuff it's saying. Because I'll say this, I didn't put it together right away, but it took me a while, and then you started posting more and more and more, and then I had to look into which posts are getting flagged and getting us in trouble. Buddy, you own about 90% of the fucking problem posts that have gotten us in trouble. So, but he's never relinquished. He's never complained. He's continued to post all the time, and I will continue to approve very little of them. No, I'll approve the ones that I think are not going to get us in trouble. But thank you for they're not problematic. Thank you for continuing to post and joining in. So Jose Estrada, you are the theorist of the week.
Oh yeah. This week's newest supporters, we had a few. We had Tanya H, Jaron Tolbert, Sammy G, and a top tier supporter in Big Fat Monkey. Fucking legend.
Oh,
Big Fat. That's your band name, isn't it?
It's similar. It's a spin-off, actually. Spin-off, Big Fat Monkey.
It's going to be Zell's band in another 10 years.
Oh yeah,
Big
just wait.
Fat
Just give a couple
Which
double
is-
chins here.
Yeah, and he's just going to be doing the drums by himself. You know, he's one of those one-man band things.
The way inflation keeps going, you have to keep cutting members to make the same amount of money. It's the only way.
All right, and as we always say at the end of these things, keep those eyes on the skies.
Oh, see you in after hours.